Yeah, we can start though, can't we? And then we can bring it in later on, yeah. Hello, everyone.
Hi, everyone. We're going to go to Ian Bolton, please, of Sky.
Hello, Roy. It's Ian here.
Yep, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are you? You looking good?
I'm fine, thanks, yeah.
Good. All right. Listen, I'm recording, so we'll make a start. Let's begin, if we can, by talking about your squad for the final Premier League match of the season. Milivojevic missed the match against Wolves. Sacco came off injured. How are they? And does James Tompkins have any chance of featuring?
Unfortunately, no. So I'm afraid the only one of those players you mentioned who may have a chance is Luca. He missed training yesterday, trained today. We'll have to wait and see if there's any reaction to the knee. And when we get together tomorrow, Mamadou Sakho, of course, is out for a period of time. So it looks like we're still going to be without a large number of those regular first teamers going into this game. And hopefully the ones that played up at Wolves will still be available for us.
You included some young players in your squad at Wolves. Mitchell started. Woods, Kirby, Pierrick, Gordon were all on the bench. So same again?
Yeah, oh yeah, they've been on the bench for a while now. There's no doubt about that. And obviously, the longer you're on the bench, the closer you come to playing, and to some extent, and also with these games coming so thick and fast, players are tiring. There's no doubt about that, and it's getting harder for us to keep using the same 11, if you like, through 90 minutes after 90 minutes. Even though I think they're doing remarkably well, and keeping our heads above water with their performances. So the younger ones do come into play more and more. There's no question of that. But we'll have to wait and see, I guess, what opportunities come their way, because we've got another tough opponent. The fixture list has been quite tough for us during this COVID period.
Is it a big ask for young players to put them in against Tottenham, who are chasing a place in the Europa League?
Well, I'd have to be convinced they were good enough, like I was with Tyreek, and I think Tyreek handled the game extremely well up at Wolves. And Wolves, to be fair, you could say at the moment are of a similar quality and at a similar level to Tottenham. So they're both very, very good teams with really top-class individual players that we've got to deal with. So I think Tyreek must be quite satisfied with how he coped with the Wolves game, and we'll have to wait and see if he gets another chance. But I'm certain he feels he deserves one, and I'm certain if I give it to him, he'll feel ready to take it.
Listen, how important is it to you, just on a personal level, to end this season on a positive note?
Well, I don't know the answer to that question. I mean, apart from the obvious one, the truism, of course, it's always good to end on a good note, and it's always good to end on a positive note, and it's always good to end the season on a win. But I think if I was hell-bent on achieving that, I'm not certain I'd have chose Tottenham as the opponent, and I'm not certain I would have chosen to play the game without 5 or 6 of our regular players. Unfortunately, in every game, you have to take into account the circumstances with which you're going into the game. So it's not as if we're playing the game in the middle of March before the lockdown with all the players we had available then. We're playing it as we are now, and as it's shown, it's been very difficult for us to play these games against these top opponents. So I certainly am hoping that we will do well and hoping we'll give a good performance. And I know that the players themselves are desperate to give a good performance and to get a result. But to be fair, we didn't do that badly up at Wolves. We didn't do that badly against Man United. We didn't do that badly against Chelsea, but it still didn't give the result. So all we can do is keep going, to keep our heads and to be aware that this is another opportunity for us to get a good result and maybe end the season slightly more positively. And if it doesn't happen, then it's got to be put to bed, and we've got to make certain that nothing that's happened in this lockdown period is allowed to affect us when we start again.
Is there a danger that what happens if you do finish this season on a negative note? How much of a danger is that translates into the start of next season? There's
a risk, I think, more than a danger, because there's quite a long period of time. It's going to be it's going to be 7 weeks before the season starts up again. Now, that's a long period of time. In that time, certain of the players that we're missing at the moment may be starting to make a reappearance, and there might be some new players coming into the club. We've already signed one, a very talented 19-year-old right-back, Nathan Ferguson, who we've been trailing and working on for some time. So already we have him coming into the squad, and I'm expecting there to be more. So I'm pretty certain that the new season will start on a completely fresh note. But I can't deny, of course, that when you finish a season on a negative note, that won't bring with it a few problems, if you like, or a few headaches. But they're none that we can't deal with.
And I was going to ask you about Nathan Ferguson. You mentioned him joining from West Brom. How do you see him fitting in? How significant is his arrival?
Well, we've been talking for a long time now about trying to make certain that we bring some younger players into the club, because, the age of the squad has been a constant subject of discussion, not least of all in the mass media, but we're aware of it too. And it's something which has become even more of a subject of awareness for us when we've got into this period where we're playing 3 games a week, and it's getting harder for players to get the recovery in time. So there's no doubt that we want to bring in players, we want to recruit players, we want to improve and strengthen the squad, and we want to rejuvenate the squad. That's been our aim all along, and our first signing, I think, is a clear mark of that intention, because the first signing that we've made is a very talented 19-year-old, albeit that he has some Football League experience already under his belt.
And do you see that as the way forward, and perhaps how things will go over the summer, that you will look to bring in younger players, perhaps rather more than experienced players?
Well, that's what we've been looking at all the time, and all the names that we've been discussing, all the names that we think are the right ones to help us go forward. They're all young players. We haven't actually discussed any older ones at all. It's dangerous to rule everything out, of course. I mean, I don't want to make a statement here that unless you're under 20 years of age, you can forget Crystal Palace. It's a little bit more nuanced than that. But in terms of a policy, we realised that the age of the squad needs to be lowered, and that we need some younger, fresher legs, some players that will come in and really challenge some of the established players we have at the moment. And I think Nathan Ferguson is the first that we've been able to get over the line. But certainly Doug Friedman and Steve Parish have been working a lot of other players, also young ones in other positions, that we'd like to try and get over the line. And ideally, we'd like to get them here as early as possible, because our squad is very, very small at the moment, and it runs the risk of starting as a very small squad next season, because a lot of the players who are currently injured will not necessarily have recovered in time to play the opening games.
Listen, a couple more from me, if I may. One to do with VAR. We've seen it in the Premier League for the first time this season. I wonder if you could sum up your feelings about VAR, but literally just 1 or 2 words.
Impossible question to answer in 1 or 2 words. And secondly, my feelings are like everyone else's, I think.
Listen,
we're torn. We're torn between what we thought technology could give us and what the reality looks like.
Okay, I think that was probably short enough, but thank you, Roy. Listen, finally, Jordan Henderson, a player well from with England, with World Cup, Euros. He's been named as the Football Writers' Footballer of the Year. A good choice?
Very good choice. Very good choice. I'd have been very surprised if the Football Writers would have been able to look beyond him. I think his leadership skills and his performances, his playing performances this year have really been decisive for Liverpool in helping them to lift this title, and not just to lift the title, to win the title by a hands down, by a long chalk. So, and then if you add that, the leadership role he's played, in helping us get the season back on track again, when it looked at one stage as though we might not be finishing this season at all. And more recently, his his stance on Black Lives Matter. I think that, there's not a box that he wouldn't tick, but I would like to think that he is probably proudest of all that the honour is being bestowed on him for his footballing performances at Liverpool this year, which I think have been outstanding, and I think make him the perfect candidate. And I'd like to take this opportunity to congratulate him. It's a well-deserved honour to a guy who's worked very hard to get that honour.
Roy, well said. Thank you very much for your time. Listen, I wish you well against Spurs. Okay.
Thank you, Ian. Thank you.
Okay. Premier League productions are going to wait until their interview. So, are there any other broadcast questions?
Yeah, if that's okay, Roy. It's for
okay.
Can I just very quickly follow up on the VAR question? I think we all have a very similar opinion. But would you be hopeful that moving forward, the thoughts and the impressions of coaches, players, those who've used it, can all lead into a better system? Can we create a better system?
Yeah, again, a very, very good question, but a very difficult question to answer. I don't know that if it's technology, you're ever going to get away from the lines and the toe offside. So I think it's probably a little bit more complicated than that. I think if that technology is going to continue, there's always going to be a cut-off point where you've got to say, well, is a toe offside? Is a toe not offside? And and what will happen, I fear, with all technology, people start doubting the technology, or they'll start debating whether it's 100% accurate at the time the ball was kicked. You're always going to have that, just like I suppose when people get caught by a speed camera, they want to say that it's not been calibrated properly. So there's always that risk as well. But I think there are wider issues to debate. I think that when it was introduced and the referees and the Premier League came around and spoke to us all, players and coaches, the mandate then was to make certain that some of the really horrendous decisions that a referee sometimes makes through no fault of his own, because things happen in a game of football, and you're there in real time and things are happening very quickly and you're forced to make a snap decision. And sometimes I'm certain referees on the field of play, having made the decision, afterwards thought, oh dear, I think I got that one wrong. And I think that was what we were being told, that we'll cut those decisions out. So the guy who's run 5 yards offside, but suddenly the linesman's had a blind spot and hasn't seen it, and a goal's been scored, and everybody in the stadium is up in arms because this surely should not have been a goal. That's changed now, isn't it? To every time a goal is scored, we stand and wait with bated breath to see where the lines are and whether someone was a millimetre offside or not. And I think that's going to be the big debate. What do people want? Do they want a somewhat less accurate picture than every goal being analysed will give you, or do you want to stick to 100% offside is offside, and if it's a toe or 5 yards, it's still offside? That's where the debate lies. And of course, I think that it's not just the players and the coaches and the administrators at clubs that are involved. I think the fans will need to have their say as well, because I remember very well it seems like a distant memory, but I do remember when fans used to come to football matches and chant and support their team, and one of their chants wasn't very supportive of VAR.
Good point. Question about the transfer window. You say obviously 7 weeks, and that's between the end of this season and hopefully the start of the new season. Although it seems like a long time, a lot of work will have to be put in quickly to build your squad. It's a shorter time than normal, isn't it? So that it's going to be quite a frantic time for you and for Dougie and for Steve. Absolutely,
yeah. There's no doubt about that. I mean, once again, we're back to ideal scenarios, and ideal scenarios rarely come to fruition. More often than not, the ideal scenario remains an ideal which doesn't get realised, because most players and most clubs, I'm sure, now will be looking forward to starting off all together as they're going to be. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think there's going to be a difficult period in the beginning while you're waiting on players and there's lots of speculation. And in particular for us, it's going to be difficult because, I say, we're missing 5 regular first team players, and at the moment, it doesn't look likely that any of those 5 will be there at the start of the season.
It would be positive to finish with a win, but it's a pretty tough challenge, isn't it, to see off a team that are going to come with something to play for, and also under Jose, a very, very difficult side to beat.
Well, that's been the case really for the last games. I mean, we started with Bournemouth and, of course, had a win, but since then, really, certainly 5 of the last 7 games really have been against teams A with a lot to play for, and B teams that are right at the top of the table. So every game's been a tough one, and this is just another one on that very, very difficult run. It's a pity in some ways that the games weren't spread out a little bit differently, and we could have played some of these before the COVID break lockdown, and some of the ones we played before that play them now. But that hasn't the way it's worked out for us, and it's put us in this invidious position that we found ourselves in. But I think even up at Wolves, for very long periods, we gave a very good account of ourselves. We end up losing the game 2-0, and the second goal was a goal which would have graced any striker really in the Premier League. And we've just got to go out and do it again. And we know it's tough, and we know it's going to be difficult, and we'd love to win, and that's going to be our goal. But unfortunately, I can't give any guarantees that will happen, because you rightly say we're playing against a team with really top quality players, a top quality manager, well organised, and furthermore, they know that if they don't beat us, they might miss out on a European spot. And I can't threaten our players about missing out on any spots, because we were safe in the league a long time ago.
And just finally for me then, in regards to that, obviously you'd like a win, but from your players' point of view, you've talked consistently through this period about how their performances have deserved more and how much effort they've put in. It would be, you can understand their frustration. It would be nice for them to have a little break for a few weeks with a victory, maybe that they've deserved.
I totally agree with you. Victories are really the thing about or the substance of which friends are made, as it were. And I'm afraid the defeats are orphans, and we've had a lot of being orphaned recently in the matches. So yeah, we'd love to win that one. The mood in training is good. We're very tired still. That's what I'm not worried about the mood. I'm not worried about the desire. I'm not worried about the attitude at all. I'm only concerned about the fatigue factor, because the Wolves game took a lot out of us, and I'm hoping that we'll have recovered in time to get that energy, which is really going to be needed. We needed it to take on Wolves, and we're going to need it again to take on Tottenham.
Thank you for your time. Good luck Sunday.
My pleasure, thanks.
Okay, thank you. That concludes the broadcast section.